Okay, so as I promised, we're going to check out some examples. As you can see, I have commented out some method calls to some other recursive methods because we're going to be checking one method at a time. Okay, so first of all, we're going to create a recursive method that is going to calculate the length of a string. Okay, but it's going to be done using recursion. We of course know that we can do this with a Java function, but the whole point in here is not trying to solve a problem, but trying to see how that particular problem is solved using recursion. Okay, so in this case I have a string B, and this string says Blanca, has the word Blanca. Okay, and I'm going to find the length of this string, and I send the string itself over here. So let's take a look at the method. So our method is here, and remember, the very first thing that we need to do is to identify the base case. And in this case, the base case will be when the string is empty. So I'm going to use the isEmpty method provided by the string class. So as the string comes in as a parameter, first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to check if this string is empty. If the string is empty, it's really easy because I know the answer to the question is that the length of this particular string is 0. So that is my base case. Now, otherwise, I will be using the recursive call. And the recursive call, again, I get my string S, and it's going to return 1, which is going to be adding, so that we can figure out the total length. It's going to add to the call. Here is a recursive call of string length is calling itself, but now it's going to call it with a substring, with a piece of the string, and we're going to substring at 1, meaning that the very first element will not be passed on in the recursive call. So then the next time this method is called, is going to be one less element and one less element and one less element until we reach our base case again, when that particular string will be empty as it is sent. Okay, so let's try this. Okay, we're gonna compile this code and we're gonna run it, and it says that the length is 6. Okay, so what I am going to do is that I will be sending you this code, the whole thing. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is that I am going to comment this out, and we're going to look at another method. Okay, so we continue writing here, and we're going to be using the same string B. Okay, but now instead of printing the length, what we're going to be doing is that we're actually going to print this particular string in reverse. Okay, so instead of printing Blanca, it's going to print Agnal. Okay, so let's take a look at the method to do this. So we go right in here, and we get the string S right here, which is the name, right? And first thing, my base case, I'm going to ask if this particular string is empty. And I know that if the string is empty, I'm simply going to return because there's nothing to print. And that is the simplest case that I can think of. Okay, now otherwise what we're going to do is that we're going to print the character at the position, which is the string length minus 1. If you look at this, this is S, the string that I am passing, and I'm going to go position length minus 1, which will be the very last position of the string, and it's going to print it. Okay, now remember that I told you that whatever was after the recursive call, it's going to go in the stack. Okay, so in here what I'm doing is that I am going to actually go and call again, print in reverse, right? And I'm going to print this, but now in this case, I'm going to substring starting at position 0, the next string that I'm going to be sending, but I am going to go all the way to length minus 1. Therefore, in this call, I am going to be shrinking the string by 1 position. Okay, and every single time that I do this, every single time that I call this method again, that it calls itself, is going to be doing so with a string that is going to be shorter by 1 character. It's going to continue to happen until it gets to the base case, which is when the string is empty, and it's going to just return. Remember always that the base case doesn't have any recursive calls. The recursive calls are done right in here, because remember, the base case will always give us like a very simple solution to a very simple version of the problem. Okay, so now if you were going to print a string, any string, and you wanted to do it iterate, iterate using a loop, it will be different, definitely. But I know the other one, using a for loop or so, you could do. So let's take a look at how this one will look like. Okay, first thing, I'm going to compile this code and let me fix it. Okay, it's done, so it compiles. Let me show you. So there it is compiling, and I am going to run it, and when I run it, it prints Blanca, the other way around. So it is done using recursion. Okay, so now we are going to check out how the stack actually works. I had a little comment here to remind me to show you the stack for the execution of this code. So what I'm going to do in order to do this is that I am going to place a stop sign somewhere in here in the code so that I can get the canvas out. So here it is, and I got the canvas, from the workbench. And what I'm going to do is, let's move this up a little bit. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to click on the ladybug, and the part that it's really important is that we're going to pay attention to is the stack, so that we can see the stack and how it records all the calls to the same method. Okay, so for this right now we are in the debug part, and here is our canvas. We're not going to be looking at this, but we're going to be paying attention to the stack. So I'm going to move this a little bit this way, and let's click the ladybug, and here we go. So as you can see in here, we're going to call the print reverse. Okay, so it is right here, and I stopped it, but now I'm going to continue so we can pay attention to this part over here. And what we can do also is put this object in here so we see what's happening. So here we go, and here we go. You see how the string s is shrinking because we are taking the length out, right? And there you go. When we close this, we see that it prints exactly the opposite way. And that was what we wanted, right? So now we saw it, and we saw the way the stack behaved.